All right. Thank you for joining my class. My name is Stephanie. I'm one of the Wranglers with Redefining Strength and Dietitians. So today we're going to be talking about how to maximize a plant-based diet. So a plant-based diet has a lot of different categories that you can kind of break it up into. Today, I'm going to be focusing on if you are just completely not eating meat or you're eating it in very limited amounts, which is ultimately what a plant-based diet is. So it's just, as the name says, a diet consisting of foods primarily from plants. And so within these, and then also, like I just mentioned, it's going to be complementary with limited amounts of eggs, meat, and dairy, but it's going to be important to also get those other nutrients in there that I'm going to be talking about later. Just being mindful overall of the components that are going to be going onto your plate, which is what we're going to kind of, delve into today. And then the next category would be a whole foods plant-based diet. So this diet is more so I guess you could say foods that are close to nature. Um, so basically anything you can just pick right out of the ground, pretty much. That's going to include fruits, vegetables, seeds, um, seeds, whole grains, stuff like that. You're not going to see a lot of course, it's all up to the individual, but you're not going to see like a lot of vegetable oils, like the olive oil and stuff like that. It's just going to be as close to nature as you can get. And then finally, there's the vegan diet, which is sometimes considered a plant-based diet as well. But I kind of look at a vegan diet being on a spectrum. So it's either you can be like a super healthy vegan, which is probably going to be more so along the lines of the whole foods plant-based diet, or you can be a junk food vegan because, Oreos and Sour Patch Kids are also vegan. So you could be on either side of the spectrum. And this one's also going to include, processed foods such as the baked goods that we see that are labeled as like vegan and plant-based and stuff like that. Or the alternative meats, like the, fake chicken and, those burgers, the Impossible burgers and stuff like that are more on the processed side. You probably won't see those in a whole foods plant-based diet. But with a plant-based diet, it has flexibility to include kind of like a balance of all those things. That's why I kind of, advocate and gravitate towards the plant-based diet because you're not necessarily restricting anything and it's just you're finding a good balance while having an abundance of the fruits and vegetables. All right, so now I'm going to kind of look into and go over what the ideal plate would look like because sometimes it can be overwhelming when you are, if you are already in like a plant-based lifestyle and you don't eat a lot of meat, like how exactly should your plate look? Because especially in America, we kind of tend to make the protein the star of the meal, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But then we also forget about like how much fruits and vegetables we need throughout the day when we're focusing on the protein so much. So yeah, the ideal plate when you don't have meat, and of course, this is all going to come down to what your macro ratio is because everyone's going to be different. So it's going to be a different approach across the board. If you're like a higher protein ratio, you're going to probably see yourself maybe like doubling, or just a little bit more than the protein-rich foods that it indicates on this little plate graph right here. So definitely, if that's like a concern for you, talk to your trainer about that, and they'll definitely help you find that perfect balance. But ideally, you're going to have that 50% of the fruits and vegetables, and then we're going to have that good portion of grains and starches, which a lot of times we'll actually go into on the next slide. They have a lot of protein in too that can add up throughout the day that sometimes it's overlooked because we kind of focus on the protein sources like the soy milk that's shown here in the peanut butter tofu, the beans. I think that's a black bean burger there. So stuff like that. But ideally for each meal and snack throughout your day, and this is an ideal situation. I know life gets in the way, so sometimes it's not feasible to do this, but ultimately having a protein, carb, and some type of fat is ideal just to have that balance of each macronutrient. And this also helps to keep us full as well for a longer period of time. And then this one, eat the rainbow. So we often say this to children, like as parents or, just in general, try and get them to eat their fruits and vegetables. But that never changes when you go into adulthood. You still want to eat the rainbow and make your plate colorful. Try to aim for like 1 or 2 colors on your plate. That's like usually a good number to strive for. More colors, the better. That ensures you're getting those vitamins and minerals, antioxidants that you want to get throughout the day. And then also I wanted to mention that sometimes when we do gravitate more towards plant foods, you want to be mindful of adequate serving sizes because they are lower in calories a lot of times. And even though they are more nutrient dense than a lot of processed foods and stuff like that, but this is all kind of just like gauging your hunger fullness cues when it comes to your serving sizes. So just making sure that you are eating enough. And there was just a video on eating enough and how to like incorporate those calories and stuff like that. So that kind of goes hand in hand. And then at the bottom here, they are showing that, other essentials such as we got the seasonings, they have salt down there, the sunlight for the vitamin D, and that might be hard in the winter time for a lot of people, depending where you're at. But we are typically like lower on vitamin D. So I would recommend getting a supplement, if not in the summer, in the winter time, because that can never hurt. And then the optional extras here, of course, we have our glass of wine every now and again, that you can include in there with dinner and a balanced meal. And then I think that's like the olive oil you can add in there. You can saute your vegetables with. That's also a good way to, add those healthy fats in there if you are trying to increase your calories, or if you find a lot of times like clients are finding themselves really full at the end of the day. So that's like kind of a way you can sneak in some calories and some healthy fats into your meals as well. All right. And then this is kind of going back to the protein that I was talking about earlier. This is the number one question people ask when it comes to a plant-based diet. Where do I get my protein from? So you're going to have your standard protein sources that are going to be higher in protein for a smaller volume that I listed to the left here, which is like tofu, tempeh, beans and legumes, nuts and nut butters, peas, whole grains, nutritional yeast, which I always say is a vegan gold mine because it has B12, which is we're going to go into soon, one of the essential vitamins you want to try to get with a vegan diet. And it also has a good amount of protein, and it has like a nice cheesy flavor that you honestly barely even notice, but it's packed with a bunch of nutrients in such a small amount. So that's always something good to have in your cabinet. And then over here, this little diagram shows us a lot of untraditional, food groups that you wouldn't think of as protein sources. Like for example, the potato, it has 8 grams of protein for a large potato. And that's going to kind of come down to, because, finding our macros is like a puzzle. So you kind of want to figure out how it can fit in there because it is, has a higher percentage of carbs, but you also have to take into consideration it has lots of vitamin minerals and the protein that it kind of goes overlooked because I feel like potatoes get a bad rep over the years for some reason. So that's like a pretty good nutrient dense food right there. And going off of like the carb rich foods, oatmeal also has some protein in there as well. And then the quinoa, of course, that also has all 9 essential amino acids. So that's another gold mine along with the nutritional yeast to kind of include in your diet if you're a fan of quinoa. And then the hemp seeds, flax seeds, those are really good sources too. You can hide those in smoothies. You can sprinkle them on oatmeal or put hemp seeds in like stir fries and stuff like that. Just kind of like getting creative and experimenting in the kitchen, adding all these little, tiny little adjustments can really make a drastic change in achieving those macro goals you have, and also just like finding those nutrient dense calories to add into your diet. And I also did want to mention, it's always advocated that vegans get, the complementary proteins and all 9 essential amino acids. So rice and beans is an example of a complementary protein. I have like a little list here. It's peanut butter and whole grain bread. That's also complementary protein, as well as tofu and rice, or pretty much any whole grain, hummus and pita bread, a grilled cheese sandwich. And this isn't necessarily like vegan, but if you do eat cheese, cheese has all 9 essential amino acids. So you can add that in there to kind of achieve those. Yogurt and nuts, noodle stir fry, and peanut or sesame seed sauce, whole grain cereal and milk, tacos with beans and lentils or lentils, and quinoa and black beans are a few complementary protein dishes that go really well together to achieve all those 9 essential amino acids. And the whole purpose for that is because our body cannot make those on our own without getting them from food sources. So it's really important to get those and have all 20 amino acids working together to maintain and build that lean muscle mass. So that's really important to be mindful of. And it's not, you don't necessarily have to get those in one meal to reap the benefits, as long as you're having a combination of a bunch of these different food groups together throughout your day, you're pretty much getting your amino acids throughout the day. So it's not crucial that you have to pair them together or anything. And as I talked about, as I mentioned earlier with the B12, this is something that you definitely want to make sure you're being mindful of, especially if you don't eat meat, dairy, seafood, or eggs mentioned here, because it's commonly found in animal products and it's a lot more absorbable for our body in the animal product form. So it's really important also, like if you are like feeling low energy or fatigued and you don't know why, to maybe get blood work done. I'll put that recommendation out there if you do eat like a primarily vegan diet, because a lot of times vegans can be low in B12 if you're not mindful of getting it from other sources. So it's really important because it maintains our body's blood and nerve cell health, and it prevents anemia. So some plant-based forms that you can find it in are nutritional yeast. Obviously, I'm a really big fan of that. Almond milk, fortified cereals, soy, which includes tempeh and tofu, which you can find in a lot of grocery stores nowadays, even with like the seasonings added in, which is super convenient. Chlorella and seaweed, which is less common, but you'll find that if you eat sushi. And then cremini mushrooms are also a source of B12. Another one that's pretty prevalent is omega-3. So it helps reduce inflammation, joint health, brain function, and risk of heart disease. So it definitely has a lot of benefits going on that we don't want to skimp out on. It's crucial for our body to have just to reap those benefits. And a lot of people, unless you are eating, and we don't find ourselves eating seafood on a daily basis most of the time, it's really expensive to eat salmon every day, and people just aren't in the mood for seafood every day. So omega-3 supplements may be beneficial for you, but there's also the plant sources that you want to try first, for sure. The nuts and seeds, as I mentioned, with, they also have that protein in there too. So it's more bang for your buck. You got the flax seeds, chia seeds, and walnuts. And then we also have soybeans. So you can find it in tofu and products like that as well. So overall, I just kind of wanted to review, like, why would you gravitate more towards a plant-based diet and go over the benefits of that. First, I mentioned weight management. It has been shown that someone that adapts a plant-based diet or, incorporates more vegetables and fruits in general to their diet, just creating that overall balance, has a more, I don't want to say easier, but research has shown that it's been a better path for weight management. So this is because it's lowering calories overall and the volume of food is higher. So you're pretty much feeling satisfied with the meals you're eating. You're not getting hungry directly after, and you're not exceeding your caloric needs at the same time, versus the highly processed foods, which are typically higher in calories due to, the higher fat levels, higher carb levels, which we typically find in processed foods, and they're most likely lower in fiber, which is gonna most of the time have us feeling hungry 1 or 2 hours after we're eating. So That's pretty much kind of the cause of why it helps with weight management. And then aside from, weight and just like overall being healthy, because that's, pretty much everyone's goal is just to feel good and just be healthy. It can prevent and in some cases even reverse chronic diseases, which this is astounding to me that nutrition has the power to do this. Research has an overwhelming, it's especially overwhelming regarding heart disease and diabetes. And those are two pretty prevalent chronic diseases in the United States. So that's something to, kind of take into consideration when you're thinking about incorporating more plant-based foods into your diet, or just like vegetables and fruits and overall. And then it's also been linked to lower rates of arthritis, improved liver function, and healthier kidneys. So it has had pretty astounding impact on our body when we kind of like gravitate closer to the earth foods, so to say. And then also I did want to mention, because I'm a pretty green person, so just put it out there, if you want to lower your green footprint, raising animals for food is an inefficient use of resources. And when you kind of look at a visual map of it, we are taking up more land than to raise crops to feed the animals than we are to feed humans, which is kind of crazy to think about. So I just wanted to share that with you. I know that all the craze was like meatless Mondays and stuff like that. So if you wanted to like challenge yourself to do something like that, or even if it's just one meal a week, I feel like that would have like a great benefit. And for me, when I kind of gravitated towards eating a little less meat, it challenged me to cook more, which I didn't know I needed those skills so bad until I kind of like was challenged to it. So it's kind of fun to, tap into your creative skills in the kitchen and, get all the benefits from that as well. And then also associated with fewer climate altering greenhouse gas emissions. So that's another benefit as well when we're kind of like decreasing our animal product intake. So not only is it good for our bodies, it's also good for the environment as well. All right, well, that's, I feel like the bulk of what I got for today. Does anyone have any questions, thoughts, concerns?
Nice presentation. I loved your graphics. Those are awesome.
Thank you. I'm a visual person, so I feel like those would be helpful. All right, if no one has questions, if you think of anything after, you can always, post it on Facebook or ask your trainer, and then we'll be more than happy to answer for you. But thank you all for attending. Oh, there's something in the chat. I do have a list of the pairings. Yes. I'll put those in our work chat, and then I'll have your wrangler send them to you. Make a note of that. All right.
Yeah, ditto for me too. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's a lot of pairings that like people don't traditionally think of, because it's like I said, it's always like the rice and beans and stuff like that. But so it's kind of fun to experiment with different ones, especially as I mentioned, like if it's like after a workout or something, you definitely want to get all those amino acids in there to help build that muscle.
Just a quick question too.
Sure.
So I had some tofu because I try to dabble in plant-based. I was being more diligent, not as of late, but I froze tofu because it was, going to go bad. So right before it went bad, I froze it because I saw that it was okay. And when you pull it out, does it thaw out and you can use it the same as you would normally?
That's a good question. I've never frozen tofu before, but I think you should be able to, put it in the fridge, thaw it out. I think it should be able to cook the same.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how you cook it, but I would try maybe baking it after that. Do you know what kind of texture it was, the tofu? Was it like an extra firm?
Yeah, it was extra firm.
Okay, yeah.
I was looking for the protein side. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think you should be good if you just kind of thaw it out for like 24 hours or whatever it may be.
Okay.
I'm saying that from not experience. So hopefully that works out for you, because I know tofu can turn on you really quick. So I hope that works.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's worth a try anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Does anyone else have any other questions before we head out? All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their Friday.